I can hear you. Is okay.
On my webcam. It's right there. Yeah, I think we got it. All right, so hopefully the levels aren't too high. Because I talk loud. Go ahead and talk for me real quick.
This is standard talking voice.
Yep, sweet. All right. So we are here today because reasons. Now, my reason is that I have a number of Cryx models, and I want to build a list, which I've been doing a few times already. But Nick, being a much more experienced Warmachine player, we thought that we'd get together and kind of, as they say, kill two birds with one stone. We'll go ahead and build a Cryx list, and at the same time, uh, do it live so that everyone can see what it looks like. So normally we would use the War Room 2 on a tablet or phone. And I didn't have a chance to hook it up, but next time we do this for Warmachine, I should have it up. So we're going to use a website that a lot of people use to build lists, especially if they know what things do. It's called Conflict Chamber. It's at conflictchamber.com. Um, I do suggest that if you do use it, that you make a little donation. There's a little button over there on the side of it to donate, and I'll show it to you.
Yeah. Like Dave said, the important part there is it does not have rules. So you can have the official database up for the free cards. You could have War Room up, although if you're using already have War Room, it's kind of why you're using Conflict Chamber then. But you can get the cards for free online. It's cards.privateerpress.com, I think. It also includes any new releases for that faction. My advice is if you can swing I think it's $110 for the whole bundle of just everything in the entire game. It is worth it. Yeah, especially if you want to go to tournaments. I can still hear you.
Because I changed scenes and it didn't have the audio. So, all right, sorry about that. For those who couldn't hear me, I changed to show you that screen, and my audio went. So, anyway, with the app, you have to pay for the faction cards that you use, and so and there are some free ones in there if they come in a start like a two-player starter box or something like that. That's fine. So the
The
important.
fact
Go ahead.
I'm about to say the faction starters and the two-player starter I know for a fact are in there for free.
Yeah. So now, that being said, we're going to use Conflict Chamber, and like Nick said, there are no rules or cards in this one. So, what I'm going to do, this was kind of a, I don't want to say last minute because we talked about it yesterday, but I haven't had a chance to make any fancy options, but for the next ones we will. Um, this is kind of I capture the window and we can show what we're working on. So, if I go back here and And I go ahead and open up. Oop. I'm gonna pull up my the cards that I have real quick. Nick, why don't you talk a little bit about what some of the first steps that for building a list, and what were some of the things you want to think about first before you actually get started in building?
Sure. So the first thing that I always think about is what am I trying to do with this list? For me, that roughly divides into three categories. Is this a new player list that I'm going to play against a new player, either in a demo or a learning game? Is it a casual list where we're just playing for fun, nothing too serious? Or is it a competitive list? Am I actually going to try and go out and do my best to win with this list? And that is going to slightly tune what you do. For example, if you're looking at a competitive list, you're going to very much consider what could I reasonably be facing and how can I best handle that. Whereas with, say, the new player experience, you want to show off the mechanics without overwhelming. So first step, what are we trying to build? And then from there, let's say you choose casual or competitive, because that's arguably what we're going to be dealing with here. I like to think about, am I going to try and do something new? Is there a specific, maybe I got a new model in, maybe I got a new unit in, paint it up. Am I going to try and build it around that? Am I working outside of that? And that kind of guides me to, like, I might be building a competitive list specifically with a unit in mind, or just a general casual list, or vice versa.
Right. But the most important thing I think there is to make that distinction we talked about between casual and competitive. For not only because of how you're going to build your list, but as we talked about, if you're going to build competitively, you're going to need two lists.
It also helps you set an expectation for the game.
Yes.
So that, looking for an opponent that, if you're playing casual and you're looking for a casual game, don't go to the tournament players. Can't promise you they'll give you a casual game.
Right.
So it's going to help you kind of tune that.
And also,
well.
there are some models that seem to be more. I don't want to say absolutely necessary. There's a word for that, and I can't think of it right now. Auto includes staples, yeah. Like with Cryx we're working with today, you see Wrath Engine in a lot of.
The Wraith Engine.
The Wraith Engine, yeah. You see that in a lot of lists when they're talking about tournament results. So, which may not be something that a casual player would use, and the competitive player may not use a colossal thing, but a competitor might think a casual player might think it's just awesome, and they want to use it for fun.
And I think you hit the nail on the head there. When you're building a competitive list, the question isn't really what looks fun to play, is what's optimal.
Yeah.
What's the best answer? When you're playing casual, it's kind of throw stuff at the wall and see whatever you want.
Right.
You don't pay attention to that. Maybe you're looking at rule of cool or what have you.
Right. So one of the first things, so we're going to start with a list. And like I said, we're going to do Cryx today because that's the army that I'm going to go to. And so one of the first things that I'm going to go ahead and pull up the...
By the way, the game system is Warmachine.
Yes.
This is a Cryx Warmachine list with the Cryx faction.
Yeah, I might need to edit that a little bit.
That's what we get for doing this live.
Yeah.
But while Dave's doing that, he sent me a list, and we're going to go through and we're going to build. I think the plan is a single list, just see what we can do with what we got.
Yeah, and if we get done quick enough, maybe the second one.
Yeah, and then next steps.
Yeah. All right. So the first thing you could do it a couple different ways, and I want to give my opinion, like what I see as a newer Warmachine player, and then you can, as the veteran Warmachine player, you play a lot of tournaments around not only Arkansas, but like Missouri and other places, right? You've traveled for it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So, and although I've dabbled in it over the years, like I'm just now building an actual full 75-point army, right, for the first time. So, and I think that's a thing that happens to players. Like, it's one thing to start with that starter box and find some next steps or whatever, but getting getting from that what may be like 25 points out of the starter box or whatever it is,
What
to
what
75 is a long journey when you start factoring in the things like free cards and stuff like that.
Yeah. I think the transition that you're going to hit upon in any game system is going from what do I have and I'm going to play that.
Right.
And the other extreme is here's a collection. What am I going to play with out of the collection? Basically, are you using almost or if not everything or almost everything, or are you having to make choices?
Correct.
And this is a really good example of where you're starting a position where you have to start making some choices. You can't
Exactly.
include everything.
So to give a little bit about the list that we're building real quick, I made some trades from my Age of Sigmar army. I had carriage on Overlords with the guy through a Facebook group we have here in Arkansas, Jason, and he happened to be coming down to Fort Smith, so I didn't have to mail, which was awesome. So we just kind of met at Walmart and swapped out models. So what I have, I gave a list to Nick. I might be able to put a full list in the description as well. But we're working off models that I currently have, and then once we build from that, I'll have Nick will go and point out some things that we might be able to change or pick up and make the list a little better when we lean towards a little more serious play or competitive play. But the first thing that I think is going to limit some of your options, not so much in Cryx though. From what I've seen, most of the Warcasters are available in most of the themes, but
That
you're
that that's true for most factions.
right.
The ones that aren't are Scorn and Circle in particular. They're the ones that you tend to see casters excluded from certain theme forces.
Right.
Everybody else tends to be pretty open, and pretty much any caster can play in any theme force.
Do you think that the choosing of the Warcaster should come first or the theme?
That is a very interesting question. I think the first thing that I do is I try so are we going from a competitive standpoint or a more casual standpoint?
Let's go from a more casual standpoint, but not like
Okay,
narrative
so
focus or what you know what I mean,
yeah.
to play
So in
some local games. Yeah.
so in this situation, I look through your collection and I broke down your entries into essentially individual groups by theme force,
Right.
and then a chunk for solos, warjacks, and warcasters.
Right.
The solos got put out because solos tend to be in multiple theme forces.
Correct.
And what I did is I broke the units down. And in this case, you had two very clear winners when it came to the units.
Yeah.
You have a lot of Statixus and you
Yes.
have a lot of Banes.
Yeah.
Which immediately leads me into potentially Dark Host, Scourge of the Broken
Right.
Coast, and then you have a healthy number of Warjacks, so we could always look at a Black Industries. The Warjack or Warbeast heavy theme force is almost always an option.
Right. So I did.
So
So my side looking into Dark Host and Scourge of the Broken Coast seem to be the models that I had the most for, but I did see that is it Dark Industries or Black
Black
Industries
Industries, yeah.
was also an option. So
Yeah, you have a lot of Warjacks, so Black Industries is really good. From there, I took a moment and I looked through your casters, and this is kind of where we've narrowed down the theme forces a little bit. Now let's talk about casters here. You have 4 casters.
right.
The first guy that I want to talk about is Lord Exumer Scabarist.
Yeah.
And if you pull up his card, I want to take a moment and go through this to kind of highlight what I look for.
Sure.
So first off, I'm going to look at his personal stats, defense and armor, and how many hit points he has. The magic number, if you add defense to armor, is 30. You want that to at least be 30. His total defensive stat total is 31, so he's a little bit above average.
Okay.
Defense 14 is respectable. Armor 17 is on the better side, and he's got 18 hit points. But he's on a 40 millimeter base. Reading into that, he's reasonably durable, but he can be shot. So it's just a note there when we're building this that He's a little more tanky, but a little more open to getting shot. And since caster kills a victory condition, we got to watch that.
Right.
I looked through his rules. Knowledge of the damned. Models in this control area makes an attacker damage roll. This model can spend a soul token to cause that model to re-roll that roll. And he can collect souls from enemy models destroyed within 2 inches. Okay, cool, no problem. And then I go to his spell list and feat. And spell list, he's got a Death Ward, which is going to grant a faction model unit some armor. And if it's a Warjack, you get to pick the column you take damage on.
Mm-hmm.
Excarnate, when you kill a model, you can add, or when a living enemy warrior model is boxed by Excarnate, so you kill them with Excarnate, you can place a model in a friendly unit. So he's just right off the bat there, his first spell doesn't care what it targets. His second spell wants units. He has an area effect armor debuff, Feast of Worms. Basically, you fire the AoE out. While in the AoE, enemy models suffer -2 armor. And any models destroyed in the AoE, you get the soul.
Right.
Icy Grip, target warrior model unit, so good against enemy infantry. -2 defense and can't run. Soul Harvester, you cast it on a friendly model unit. When they destroy a model, you gain the soul token. And he has telekinesis to jump stuff. His spell list is, his feat basically gives boosted magic attack rolls and reduce the cost of his spells by 1. So this guy, number one, he's got a number of spells that are going to want to be shot off. So he's going to probably want at least 1 arc node, probably 2. He does have a lot of. He has 1 spell that references units specifically.
Right.
Excarnate, but it's not the end of the world. If you could skip Excarnate, it's not the biggest deal. He has an armor debuff. He has a defense debuff, all of which is pretty good. He can get souls. He can force rerolls. Like, looking at this guy, the only downside with him is his feat. His feat isn't going to be terribly helpful because very little in Cryx has magic attacks.
Right.
So he's an option. Warwitch Denegra. I'm going to save you the time. Warwitch Denegra is amazing. She is what they affectionately refer to in Warmachine as a turd polisher.
Yeah.
Her spell list and toolbox are all about make the opponent's stuff worse and your stuff gets dramatically better. The only comment with her is she's a little bit focus hungry. So that's going to leave me in the line of she's not going to be the biggest fan of having a lot of warjacks that are very focus hungry.
Right.
If you've got warjacks that just need a little bit of focus, that's okay. Banewitch Agathea. She's got Dark Shroud, Ghostwalk, Hellfire, Hellrot, Parasite, and Vanish. She's okay.
Hold on one second. Just having a problem with the things. Let's go. I'm just trying to make sure everybody can see the peoples. So I think I pulled. Yeah. Sorry, we were talking about Warwitch.
Yeah. So we're up to Banewitch now.
Yeah. Give me 1 second.
You're fine.
All right. Go ahead and keep talking. We'll show these as we put them up.
Okay. So Banewitch Agathea, high points on her. She has Hellrot, so Warjack gets armor and retaliation. If it's attacked, it gets to move 3 inches and attack somebody. She has Parasite and Ghostwalk, and her feat gives you stealth, Ghostwalk, and her Jack's a extra move that isn't terribly important.
Right.
So the big things with her is she's got her army. Ghostwalk, what that does is if you're in, it lets you, first off, you can move through terrain and buildings as if they weren't there.
Okay.
Which is pretty good. And then on top of that, you can not get targeted by free strikes. So what she's really good for, I think, is a rather slow army that's going to get shot off the table.
Right.
She can help get it there. If your opponent runs into you to try and jam you, which basically means get in the way, she can use Ghostwalk and her feat to get out of there. If there's terrain in the way, she can ghost walk through it, and she's got stealth to help her survive. She's originally built. Going to work very well with the Banes and some other things.
Right.
And then last thing is Morton Nebra. The deal with Morton Nebra and Darylis is she is a Warjack caster, the long and short of it. Everything she does is Warjack buffs. Warjacks get to do things. The other thing I want to point out is she has a spell called Overrun. When target model in the spellcaster's battle group destroys one or more models with an attack, blah, 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 another model gets to make a full advance.
Okay.
Which is pretty good. So basically what happens is you cast it on a friendly model, and you can spam this. You can cast it multiple times.
Right.
It only works on Warjacks, but when it kills a model, another Warjack gets a move. So and it doesn't matter if it's a melee or ranged attack. So just looking at the breakdown here, Morton Nebra is absolutely going to be a Black Industries caster.
Okay.
There isn't really a discussion there.
Right.
None of her spells work pretty much on anybody else.
Okay.
The other three can kind of jump around as you want to.
Right.
I think Denegra's raw damage. She's just raw damage and effectiveness. Agathea is a little more delivery focused.
Okay.
Denegra assumes half your army is not going to make it. Agathea says, I'm going to help the half that's going to die make it.
Gotcha.
And then Scaverous is a little weird. The big downside that Scaverous has is he relies on soul tokens. And there's a lot of things in the game that mess with soul tokens, soul collection, and things like that. So from a casual standpoint, he may look fun, but you do have to be careful of what you play against. If you play against somebody who's got a lot of Archon models or some factions in general,
right,
you can't get soul tokens off them, and they will stop you from collecting soul tokens. So he's got some cool style. He's the most easily hamstrung of the three.
Okay.
You may just randomly come across an opponent who just, Scaverous doesn't work.
Okay. Gotcha.
So let's go ahead and, for the sake of our list, omit him.
Okay.
From a competitive standpoint, he's actually playable.
Right.
Because in Warmachine, you have two lists, not one. So you can make sure that he's not being dropped into bad scenarios.
Okay.
So it leaves us with Denegra, Agathea, and Morton Nebra. And I guess here's the question. I mean, Denegra can pretty well go in any theme force.
Right.
Agathea can pretty well go in any theme force. Morton Nebra wants Black Industries. So since we're dealing with kind of more casual thing, it's whatever do you want. From a competition standpoint, Denegra is by far the best of these four casters. She's amazing.
Right.
You've also, I want to point out, you have Nightmare, which is her character jack. So you've got a lot of Morton Nebra, or a lot of Denegra tools that I quite like.
Correct.
And as to which theme force you play her in, you've got a really good argument, I think, for Dark Host with her.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what. So let's go ahead and start our list. Okay. I was leaning towards her as well, Warwitch Denegra, and let me go ahead and pull her up.
While you're pulling her up, I want to point back to a question you asked. Does the caster come first, or does the theme force come first?
Right.
Notice how they kind of happened at the same time.
They do. I can see that.
Particularly on the casual end. On the competitive end, you're going to have an archetype, and then it's just a matter of matching up what best fits what you have available, what you expect to fight,
right,
and how well is it going to accomplish that job.
All right, so we've decided on her. I'm just going to pull her
Warwitch Denegra.
Just going to pull her card into the scene here.
And then,
so that we know what we're working with.
Yep.
And do we want to pull the back of her other She got 4, a front and a back on 2 cards. So
Yeah, she's got front and back on 2 cards.
let me go ahead and pull that. I already got them cut out. I'm just adding them to the scene real quick.
While you're pulling that out, I'm going to highlight a few things about her that are noteworthy for me when putting her together. She has speed 7, defense 16, armor 14, and she has the stealth advantage. So she's fast, and if you're more than 5 inches away from her, you automatically miss her with shots. Good deal.
Yeah.
She has Soul Taker and Shadowbind, just passive rules on her and her weapon respectively. She's only mat 5, so I'm very suspicious about that Shadowbind. That tends to be a trap. If she's Shadowbinding something, you're either desperate or making a bad decision. That's the short answer to it.
Okay.
It's not that it's a bad rule; it's a fantastic rule. The problem is whatever you're doing to you better kill it, because
Correct.
if you don't, it's going to kill the Negra.
All right. So,
and she has Cull. She has Cull Social. She can collect souls as well. Spell list. Or do you want to go through her spell list right now, or?
Yeah, we can go ahead. I got her on the screen now.
Okay, so Black Talons, range 3, cost 3, range 10. This is what we refer to as if you'll excuse the language, a shitty nuke. Mm-hmm. Except hers has an ability on a critical hit, so if you roll a double, model shuffle Shadowbind. The problem with Shadowbind is it's shakeable. So if you're a Warjack or a Warbeast, you could just get rid of it. The problem is if you're not a Warjack or Warbeast, you probably died to the attack that caused Shadowbind.
Right.
So you get this weird dynamic of, if it works, it's probably working on a Warjack or a Warbeast, and you better kill it. I don't... The competitive player in me abhors that chance of riskiness. Obviously, if it's a casual game and you want to go try it, go ahead. But that's a very inconsistent strategy.
Right.
Crippling Grasp, cost 3, target model unit suffers -2 speed, strength, defense, and armor. This is one of her money makers. It is only range 8, so that tells me right off the bat that we're going to want Arc Nodes with her.
Right.
Anything that reduces your opponent's stats and doesn't have a requirement, this just says model unit suffers, is really good, and it's an upkeep. Dark Seduction, take control of target enemy non-warcaster, non-warlock model. You get a full advance and make an attack. This is really cool because it gives her a little bit of board control against troops. Let's say there's a guy on a flag. You can just Dark Seduction and make him walk off the flag.
Yeah, you can mind control.
Yeah, you can basically mind control it. So that's a fantastic ability. It doesn't come up a ton. And my advice is, the most common way I see Dark Seduction used is to arc it out of Denegra, hit an enemy model with it that maybe it's kind of hard to hit or something, and move them either out of the way or into a specific position to get charged.
Right.
And then a very important part is turn them around so they can't see forwards.
Correct.
It kind of takes them out for almost 2 turns at that point. And then she's got Ghost Walk, just like Agathea did. Parasite, -3 armor. She gets an armor. Again, it's only range 8. And Venom, this attack causes corrosion damage, and models hit suffer continuous corrosion. It is a spray attack. So she's got a lot of spells that are offensive, and they're range 8 to 10. So right off the bat, looking at her, we're going to want at least 1 arc node, preferably 2. We might even go for 3.
Okay.
Are we going with Dark Host?
I think that's the best one. From my limited experience, I do. With all the Banes that I have and stuff like that, I think it's a good choice.
You've also got 2 other pieces in there that are really important, and it's Banelord Tartaros and Dara Wraith.
Yeah.
One thing about Theme Forces is there's usually a small package of support solos that are very important to each Theme Force. And what are their names? There's 2 of them for Satixis.
Yeah, I don't remember what they are because I don't have them.
What is their names are going to drive me nuts. I'm going to have to Axiara, Wraithblade, and Severa Blacktide. They're going to be named characters. Without them, I'm not saying this Tixis is a bad theme force. I kind of really want them.
Yeah.
But with the other one, you have Dara Wraith, and we'll get to his abilities in a moment. Why he is going to be in Dark Host a very critical piece. And then Bane Lord Tartarus,
Correct.
who will also help us a fair bit.
All right. Sorry, give me 1 second. Okay, so I want to go back to here. So we're going to go ahead and choose our dark hosts. So this is kind of how conflict chamber works. We have list options that come up when we create a new list. We choose Cryx. We choose our theme. We can do that or anything else beforehand. We're going to choose dark host. What it's going to do, it's going to allow us. It's going to show us only the models that we can use in dark host. And also if there are any restrictions as we go along, like if we add a warcaster and like Warwitch, the Negra has a bond with Nightmare, named Warjack, and basically only she can bring them in. So it'll show those links as well as we go through. So we're going to go ahead and pull um, our Warcaster up as well. In Warmachine, you will see a lot of the models. There are multiple options for a specific named Warcaster. So, like the Negra does have 3 different models as far as Warcaster goes. So she has Warwitch, the Negra, Wrathwitch, or Wraithwitch, and the Soul Weaver. But we want Warwitch, the Negra.
Yeah, and you'll notice that they're numbered: Denegra 1, Denegra 2, Denegra 3.
Right.
If you ever get confused which one's which, go to Denegra's card. Look at her stat line where it's speed, strength, mat, rat, and all that. And look at the line immediately above that.
Yeah, she'll say Denegra 1.
She's
right
Denegra 1. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So we're going to go ahead and choose, when you choose things from conflict chambers, if you're not familiar, we're going to click the point value right there, which is plus 26, and that is the number of points and warjacks that she gets for free. Is that correct?
Yeah, yeah. So Warcasters are free. They don't cost you anything. What balances them is they have varying numbers of additional points brought with them for Warjacks. So this is still going to be termed as, we didn't specify, are we building 50 or 75?
75.
Okay, so
75
we're building
is the normal game, right?
Yeah, we're building a 75-point army, but it's going to be 75 plus the 26. So really, we're going to have 101 available points to spend.
Correct.
All right. And that's just a minor semantics thing. That actually is clarified in the rule book.
Right.
So it's not just we're calling it this and your local group might not. It actually specifically says in the rule book that's how that convention works.
Correct.
All right, so let's go ahead and start throwing some stuff in here. We're kind of building off what you got here. So right off the bat, do you want to start with the Warjacks or the not Warjacks?
Let's go ahead and start with Warjacks.
Okay.
Because I'm curious about a couple things, and that's I kind of understand the included of those key characters and stuff like that because they seem to be in every Dark Host list. But that I've seen, but I am a little bit more curious about the Warjacks and reasons why you would include certain Warjacks. That
Sure.
gets me.
So right off the bat, like we mentioned before, Denegra has a lot of spells she wants to cast. They're going to be cast on the opponent.
Correct.
And she doesn't want to be anywhere near this exchange.
Correct.
If she's near the exchange, she might get attacked, and getting attacked is bad.
Right.
So what we're going to do is first off, I would recommend giving her some arc nodes. Okay. Looking through your list, I see you have 2 Death Rippers.
I do.
You also have 2 Night Wretches.
And 2.
I don't believe. Oh, you have a Defiler.
A Defiler, and are the
and 2 Ripjaws.
Yeah.
And all of those are arc nodes.
Are just out of curiosity, are the Stalkers are arc nodes as well, right?
Stalkers are not.
They're not.
Stalkers are not arc nodes; they are assassins.
Okay.
Most of the Cryx lights are arc nodes. The Stalker's not. The Shrike is not.
Okay.
The Helldiver is not. And everybody else is. So we've got Ripjaws, Night Wretches, a Defiler, and some Death Rippers.
Right. So let's go ahead. I'm going to go ahead and open up on the conflict chamber the list of jacks real quick so people can see.
Yep. And in order to add them in conflict chamber, you're going to use the paperclip by Denegra's name.
Yeah.
Because they're being attached.
But at first, I want to just pull up the list and show the list, and then so what you'll do here. This just shows what warjacks are available. And as he said, to add them, we click the paperclip here, and then we add them from this list. But it has to be scrolled. But while he talks about some of the jacks, I always want you to be able to see a list of them.
Yeah. Okay. So let's go ahead and talk lights. Which of those lights do we want to pick for our arc node?
Okay.
So the thing about Cryx is none of the Cryx stuff is particularly durable.
Right.
And the reason why, if you look at Cryx in general, they tend to have a higher offensive output compared to most factions at the cost of lower defensive ability.
Okay.
Their stuff is going to die a little bit easier, but it's going to hit harder, and Denegra accentuates that. So looking through our options here for lights, the Defiler is the most expensive of the set.
Okay.
He has a range 8 spray. That's the only thing it does.
Correct.
Okay, cool. It is nice if the arc node has a gun. It's kind of a cool ability for it. Just to be able to contribute to the game aside from just casting spells. So good on you. The Ripjaw says, well, what if we just didn't have the spray attack and instead had a Buzzsaw instead? Now, his Buzzsaw is critical armor piercing, and he has powerful attacks. So what that means is he can spend 1 focus to boost his attack and his damage roll. And his critical armor piercing, if it rolls a critical hit, which is a double, the target's armor is halved for the attack. Now, that's pretty good.
Which light was that?
This is the Ripjaw.
Ripjaw. Okay.
Yep. I'm working from the list you got.
That's fine. Go ahead.
So here's the issue with the Ripjaw. You want to boost the attack anyway for critical armor piercing. Okay. That effect, you also are probably going to be charging to do things. So you're already spending a focus to charge. You're already getting boosted damage. You don't really need powerful attack at that point. Powerful attack comes in if you walk up to something and then spend your focus to do that, which, he's speed 7. The one thing Denegra conspicuously lacked was an ability to buff the speed of her own troops.
Right.
So the Ripjaw is going to be waddling 7 inches forward and hoping he gets there someday. The other issue is because he's an arc node, he's probably running every turn anyway to get where your caster wants him. So the Ripjaw is going to suffer from this, as is the
Death Ripper?
The Night Wretch, where you have a gun, you have all these abilities, but you're really not going to be using them more often than not.
Right.
The arc node is going to be running from place to place. And for that reason, I would start with 2 Death Rippers. They are the cheapest arc nodes you can get access to.
Okay.
If they're not contributing, it's the least painful of the options to have not do anything.
Right.
If we get the points, we'll upgrade them to Night Wretches.
Okay.
Because the Night Wretch at least has, because the Night Wretch is the cheapest option that still has a gun, and its gun actually hits really hard. It's like POW 14. And it's area effect. So the Night Wretch has a pretty good gun, but it's a question of if it's using the gun, are you sure Denegra can't cast a spell?
Right.
So, okay, so I'd start there. The other thing is we're absolutely 100% going to need at least 1 heavy warjack, possibly 2.
Okay, so before we get into that, because I know we're about to, give me 1 second. I am going to, and I should have had all of these pictures just loaded to pop up in the scene, but I didn't. But I want everybody to get a chance to look at the Death Ripper card. which I have right here. So I'm just
Yeah, so while that's up, high points, it's defense 14, which is actually pretty good for a warjack. It's speed 7, so it gets where you want it to go. Low armor and low hit points means it's not going to be able to take a hit very well. And sustained attack is actually kind of cute because it means if you hit, you can keep buying attacks and auto hit.
right.
Which is actually fairly useful on an arc node if you're going to pick a weapon ability.
Mm-hmm.
Because let's say an enemy model has the tough ability or something like that.
Right.
If they make that tough roll and have some effect that says they aren't knocked down, you still get to hit them for free automatically. So it's really good for cleaning out key models.
Okay. Let me pull him over here, and I'll make him a little bigger.
Yeah.
All right.
So
There's the Death Reaper's front. And like you said, the only ability that he has on his back is sustained attack, right?
Yep. And notice it's not a critical, so you don't need to roll doubles to trigger it. It's always got it.
There we go. All right. So there's our front and back for Death Ripper. And so I think he's also great. Just want to talk about that. So I think he's also great because you do get one in if you get the in the 2-player starter set. So someone who's starting out with that does have access to.
It is also worth knowing that when you buy them, they're 2-packs. You actually
Yeah,
get 2 of them.
exactly. So you get 2 in a pack. So I'm gonna go back to that screen. So I just want everybody to see what the Death River looks like. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and add that now. Okay.
And then like we're going in there, the other lights,
We're gonna add 2.
we can look at the other ones later. The Stalker's the only the Stalker and the Helldiver are the other lights we might look at. We'll come back to them.
So
Let's knock out the
gonna,
heavies first.
We're gonna go 2, right?
Well, we're gonna take 2 Death Rippers.
Yeah. Okay. So
because one is going to die, 2 is going to die. We might actually go back later on and maybe add a Night Wretch in addition to this.
Right.
Because
depending on points, right?
We need the arc nodes.
Okay. So my first question, before, as we go through Warjacks, we said we need a heavy also. What do you have any insight on whether to take Nightmare as it's bonded to her, or is it not worth doing for any particular reason that you can think of?
In the case of Denegra, yes, we are 100% going to take Nightmare. That was never a question.
Okay.
Things that Denegra likes, she likes things that have lots of attacks.
Mm-hmm.
Nightmare has 3 because he's a Cryx heavy. He's speed 6. A couple of key abilities though. He has the ability Prey, so he's going to get +2 to attack and damage rolls against a model or unit of your choosing.
Okay.
So after deployment, but before the first turn, you pick an enemy model or unit. Whenever Nightmare attacks it, he gets +2 to his attack and damage rolls.
Okay.
If it's another Warjack, he gets really powerful really fast. And then combine this with the fact that Denegra has Parasite. She has Crippling Grasp. She has her feet. You can get him up to acting like he's power 26
right.
with his melee attacks. Now, the unique part to Denegra is that buff. But the thing about him is with Denegra, he gets stealth while he's in her control area.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't shoot him if you're more than 5 inches away. Or if you shoot him, you automatically miss.
Okay.
He's also ghostly, so he effectively has Ghost Walk passively.
Okay.
So he can get where he wants to go. He's really hard to hit. He has Chain Attack Smash and Grab, so you can punch something and then headbutt it. All around fantastic Jack. He's really expensive, but particularly since you have the bond, it's going to stay alive.
Right.
You could very easily replace him with 2 Slayers. The downside of that is with 2 Slayers, they're gonna be able to get shot. And a Slayer is not a particularly hard target to cripple. And looking through your list, you don't have access to any to any repair whatsoever.
No.
So if they get crippled and lose an arm, they're super sad.
Right.
They're more attacks. The other issue with the Negra is because she has so many spells, she's going to be casting a lot of spells. She needs a lot of focus for herself.
Right.
Trying to fuel multiple heavies at one time is a little rough.
Right.
But finding the one or two to give Nightmare something to do isn't as bad.
Right. And I've got Nightmare up there. You've kind of.
Oh, it is also worth noting that Nightmare is 1 point armor higher than a Slayer, which doesn't sound like a big deal, but it kind of is.
Okay. Yeah. And is it the Slayer or the Reaper that has the chain attack like this one does? It's Reaper, right?
I think it might be the Reaper.
Yeah.
The Slayer has special attack combo strike.
No, that's right. He has combo strike.
Yeah, the Slayer has combo strike. The Reaper does not have chain attack. The Reaper is the guy who pulls you in.
Yeah, he has the harpoon or whatever it is.
Yeah, I don't think anything on there. Oh, by the way, Deathjack is not an option because of the theme force.
Correct.
Deathjack is an excellent model if you can keep him alive. I'm not sure I would take.
Sorry, I wanted to say hi to Tristan, who said hello a little while ago, I guess. And
you're fine.
And we are live. So, and I'm going to call you Tony Oender. Welcome. Sorry for the delay in saying hi. All right. So, go ahead.
So yeah, Deathjack's not an option. We probably wouldn't take him anyway, because the other thing Denegra conspicuously lacks is a survivability buff.
Mm-hmm.
She has no armor buff. She has no like occultation or something like that.
Sure.
So you got to understand her army is going to get shot to pieces on the way in.
Right.
And that's why Nightmare is very interesting, because you can't shoot Nightmare to death as easily.
Okay. So let's go ahead and add him. Keep talking. I just wanted to go ahead and add him to our list.
So Nightmare's going to come in. The other heavy I'd recommend is the Leviathan.
Okay.
And the reason why is because Leviathan gets D3 shots, and he gets a passive damage buff against large targets.
Okay.
So it actually can do a surprising amount of damage against big things, especially with the fact that Denegra can drop a 7-point armor debuff on a single guy. You crippling grasp it, you parasite it. I'm sorry, you cannot crippling grasp and parasite because both of those are upkeeps.
Okay.
Because upkeeps are important. You can crippling grasp or parasite something, and then you have her feet. But any other armor debuff is also going to. I mean, you got a 5-point armor swing floating around, so that can make the Leviathan effectively power 20 on its main gun.
Okay.
The Reaper's more cute than good.
Okay.
He's cheap, which is a good thing. The biggest problem is he's Rat 5 range 8.
Right.
Which is a little sad.
Okay.
It's not unworkable, but
yeah, he has the harpoon or the pull, the get over here mechanic, but other than that, I can see where you're coming from.
In a full game of Warmachine with terrain and models in the way, it's much harder to pull that off than you think it is.
Yeah, most definitely. So we did the one video, but that was just like a few models, and it leaves a lot of openings to make that happen.
Because a couple of things there. If it contacts a model, it stops. If it contacts like a wall or an obstruction or an obstacle or a building, it stops. And that's a lot of Warmachine tables. There's a lot of buildings out there in Warmachine.
Right.
You want those big chunky line of sight blockers in the middle, and it's kind of hard to get this thing to work.
Right.
So that's just me. Again, if you're going casual, I think it's a lot of fun to Reaper something.
Yeah.
And I would also suggest that you actually, if you want to Reaper something, do it under Iacos. There's some cool shenanigans you can do there.
Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and put up. Sorry. ahead and put up the Leviathan.
Yeah.
And once again, I apologize, everyone, for not having these ready beforehand, but it was kind of last minute. Our next build it now, when we go through build it up, I'll find out what we're doing in the model pool, and I'll have them already there.
Yeah.
So
The last comment before we move away from Denegra's Warjacks I want to mention is the Scarlock Thrall, which is an attachment. The Scarlock Thrall's biggest ability is Spell Slave. So it can cast a spell that's cost 3 or less. It cannot be an upkeep spell or a spell that's range self or control. That's kind of a problem because if you look at Denegra's spell list, you could cast Black Talons. Okay. It could cast Dark Seduction. Okay. It can Ghost Walk and it can Venom. The two big money makers, Parasite and Crippling Grasp, it can't do. So we're not really going to get a ton out of this model.
Right.
It's if we have some points left over, particularly with theme forces when we get free stuff, we might grab it, but we're not going to grab it right now.
Okay, we're going to go ahead and add the Leviathan to our list, and I did pull it up on the screen there. But just,
yeah, so
if I
so I got two.
Like that, just keep talking.
You're fine. So I got 2 Death Rippers, a Nightmare, and a Leviathan.
Yep, we have 2 Death Rippers, a Nightmare, and a Leviathan.
So let's go to the not Warjacks. We have a unit of Bane Warriors and some Bane Riders. I know you have 2 units of Bane Warriors. We're gonna start with 1.
Okay. So
not because there's anything wrong with 2, but Denegra, it's not as big of a deal because all of your buffs are on your opponent.
Right.
But the big thing is you only have 1 officer in standard.
I do. I only have 1. So
which that's the guy we want.
Okay.
And while we're here, since he's kind of expensive,
we're
going to put them in. That's it for units right now. We might throw the other warriors in later. But at this point, now that we've kind of filled out what we're going to be including in terms of big entities, I like to look at the free stuff from the theme force. What can we get for free?
Okay.
And just looking at it, our options are 3 Machine Wraiths. We don't have any Machine Wraiths. 3 Necrotechs. We don't have any Necrotechs. Bane Knight Officer. We don't have any Bane Knights. Bane Warrior Officer in Standard. Okay, so we can get him for free.
Right.
Bane Lord Tartarus. We can get him for free. Scrap Thrall. We don't have any Scrap Thralls. The Scarlock can be free. Soul Trappers and Dr. Stygius. Given the models available, we've only got 3 choices on that list that we can take. Those being Bane Lord Tartarus, the Bane Warrior Officer, and the Scarlock Thrall.
Right.
We don't have any other choices right now, just because of model availability.
Okay.
So let's go ahead and add all 3 of them in.
All right.
Now,
so we're gonna look at attachments first, right?
Yeah. So now, while you're in Conflict Chamber will let you just put everything in, and it will automatically select what's free.
Right. So.
And you actually might notice it'll drop the point costs based on that.
Right. So when I open up the solos and I open up the attachments, I can see here any of the free things. That they'll put it as 0. I'm pointing it out now.
Yeah.
So.
And if you add something later that would cost more, it will actually switch to that one being free.
Okay.
So you don't have to worry about what's getting free. Conflict Chamber is making the most efficient choice possible. By that, I mean the most expensive model that's legal.
Oops, I put the wrong thing in there. I put the Bane Riders.
So
I wanted the Warriors.
Yeah, you don't have.
With the attachments, you need to do the same thing as you do with the Warcaster and hit the attachment little paper clip. Anyway, it'll attach it. So like the Bane Warriors, I want to attach the Bane Warrior Officer in Standard. I would hit that paper clip next to it, and it'll, since it's the only eligible attachment, it just pops it in.
Yeah.
You said the other one was the Bane Lord?
So Bane Lord Tartarus.
Yeah.
And then we can also grab the Scarlock Thrall on Denegra.
Correct. And that will automatically add it to her as well, because it's the only, I think it's the only real.
Well, it's the only place it can go.
Yeah.
Now, if we had some more options available to us, we might have looked at the Bane Knight Officer as well.
Right.
Because what we might have done is, let's pretend this is a more little more flexible options. We probably we'll get to that at the end. I'm sorry, I'm getting ahead of the
Yeah.
putting the cart ahead of the horse.
Well, just basically there, I think that if you're going to add things for free, you're going to want to add the things that cost more.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you get a few more
Um.
free points.
So if we go back to flipping through our options here, there's one more model I want to point out, and that's Dara Wraith.
Yep.
He's a horseman, and the very interesting thing about this guy is if you look at his abilities, he's actually a magic caster, and he's got 3 spells. He's got Hellfire, which is a range 10, power 14, cannot make a tough roll.
Right.
Very powerful ability because he's magic 7. No tough roll means it's a very consistent killer. If you hit an enemy model with it, it's probably going to die. Mortal Fear, while in this model's command range, which is 9, living enemy models suffer -2 to damage rolls. This isn't a super big deal on the Banes, because the Bane warriors, if they get hit, they're going to die.
Right.
The Bane Riders and the Warjacks, on the other hand, which have multiple hit points, are much more interested in this. So he can help you defensively protect your Warjacks. But the big ability he's got is Death Ride. Friendly faction undead models activating in this model's command range gain +1 movement when making a normal move.
Okay.
Effectively. So it turns, and you can do that and run, by the way. So it lets your Bane warriors run 11 inches. It's not 12 because it says movement, not speed. It's +1 inches net movement when you do that.
That is weird. I have a weird issue at the moment. Hold on one second. I'm trying to
Okay.
show us on the screen, and it's not showing us. So maybe Zoom doesn't like us.
I mean, it's Zoom.
Yeah. Well, it's free, so that's why it gets used. Okay. So OBS. I'm just trying real quick to see what happens. Properties. Huh. It was working just fine earlier. So I don't know what you did to it.
Uh-huh.
Add. No. Weird. Let's try it one more time. Specific.
While you're doing that, I'm going to fill some dead air with some
Oh,
commentary.
that's why I got the wrong one.
So with Dara, he's got a 9-inch command range, which is more than enough to catch your Bane Riders and your Bane Thralls if you place them right. Giving them an extra speed is going to help them get across the table faster. Like I mentioned with the Negra, Cryx kind of assumes you're going to take a lot of casualties, and their stuff is all about force multiplication on that back end. Dara helps you get across the table faster, which means you're going to take slightly less damage on the way in.
Okay.
But with the force multipliers, with the Negra, that's going to go a lot further. Maybe one extra guy makes it in, but that one extra guy might be making a power 17 weapon master attack,
Right.
which is really good. Plus, he can clear very important locations and things like that. All around, Dara Wraith is a very good guy to have around.
Okay.
And then that leaves us, I've got it building here on War Room. I have 10 points left in total.
So once we add Dara Wraith, is what you meant?
Once I add Dara, I've got 10 points left.
Okay, I must have missed something.
So
I'm gonna go back since we lost that video. I'm gonna go back here.
I've got Warwitch Denegra,
Uh-huh.
Scarlock Thrall,
Yeah.
Death Ripper,
Yeah.
Death Ripper,
Yeah.
Nightmare, and Leviathan.
Those are correct.
Banelord Tartarus,
Correct.
Dara Wraith, he's 9 points by the way.
Yeah.
Bane Warriors full unit
Yeah.
with Bane Warrior Officer and Standard.
Yeah.
Bane Riders full unit.
That's why I didn't put the Bane Riders in.
Okay. And then the free things are the Bane Warrior Officer and Attachment, Tartar Sauce, and the Scarlock Thrall.
I show that we have 10 points. You're right. 10
Yep.
points.
Okay. So with 10 points and the collection available to us, we have some options. We could put a small unit of Banes in. We can put a 6-man unit of Bane Warriors in. It's not a bad choice.
Okay.
More guys trying to run across the table is never a bad thing.
Right.
We can also look at that's a Slayer. As you have to understand that the heavy is just throwaway. It's just trash.
Right.
It's going to die. You're going to scream it at your opponent. Okay. The extra arc node, because what we can do is upgrade both of the Death Rippers to Night Wretches.
Yes.
They go from 6 to 7 points then. Then we have 8 spendable points left. You could either grab a Defiler or a Stalker. The Stalker is not an arc node, but the Stalker does some weirdness. It also prevents your opponent from healing, which could potentially be very useful.
Okay.
Either of those is fine. So so if you go the extra light route, upgrade both the Death Rippers to Night Wretches, and then either take a Defiler or a Stalker.
Okay.
If you're a newer player, I'd opt for the Defiler.
What do you think about adding a mercenary solo?
I didn't know you had any.
I do have a couple. That's why I said I thought it was a full list. But all I have right now, that would be. I don't have any warjacks I can use. The only mercenary warjack I have is a renegade, and it's bound to someone.
So you're not going to be able to put any mercenary warjacks in.
No.
Because you do not have any mercenary casters or jack marshals.
Correct. So what I have as far as mercenary solos.
Yeah, so it's worth noting you do get a free a mercenary solo and a mercenary unit. They're not free. You just get to pick one. Unlike a lot of situations, that mercenary unit actually works here. And the reason why it doesn't usually work is a lot of abilities specify friendly faction.
Mm-hmm.
All of Denegra's stuff is on your opponent. Parasite's on your opponent. Crippling Grasp is on your opponent.
Right.
So putting a mercenary unit in your army works there because they don't care.
Okay, so I don't have any units. I do have
That's fine.
Solos. I have usable. I have Doc Killingsworth.
He's going to be a pretty handy no, because if you look at his abilities, they all specify friendly faction, or private
Ogre
or privateer model.
Yeah, I have Ogre and Bokur.
A Bokur, okay. So the Ogre and Bokur is basically I'm going to protect your caster guy.
Yeah.
He has an ability Shield Guard once per round. If somebody's hit within 3 inches of him, you can off the hit to him, which is okay, not bad. And you also can get what's called you can pick a friendly model to be his client.
Okay.
While within 6 inches of the client, you get +2 attack and damage rolls. Denegra's not going to be anywhere near the front line, so that ability is irrelevant.
Okay.
You'd be paying for the Shield Guard on him, which, if Denegra is getting shot, you made a mistake or something's gone horribly wrong.
Right.
Because she has stealth.
Right.
Her getting shot is not a thing that I'm terribly worried about. So I wouldn't opt for the Bokur in that situation. I don't
have
see
him, but we're getting towards the end of it. I wanted to ask you I see a lot of lists that include, and we're talking about in tournament results, obviously,
Uh-huh.
but because that's basically, I mean, no, the local hobby shop's not, casting out their casual game list. But there's another mercenary, Doctor Stygius, seeing a lot of lists. So you have,
So Stygius actually isn't going to be a merc for you because he has partisan da, ba, da, 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 ba. The heck is it called? Um
the Cephalinx or whatever, Cephalinx or whatever.
yeah, and he's going to attach to a Warcaster, so he would be in place of the Scarlock Thrall.
Okay, gotcha. Okay.
The thing about him is when it comes to dealing with your caster,
Mm-hmm.
he can heal you, remove 5 points of damage, or he has the same spell slave ability that the Scarlock does.
Okay.
The only difference is he's got stealth, he's a little more durable. Eh, eh, eh. I'm not necessarily the biggest fan of him.
Okay.
In this situation.
In this situation, definitely. Okay.
He has applications, just not here.
Right. And so back to focusing on finishing the list itself.
Yeah. So three choices.
The Slayer.
Take a Slayer. That's option one.
Yeah.
Downside here is that Slayer is just completely expendable.
Correct.
If it takes any crippling damage, you aren't going to be able to repair it.
Okay.
Not necessarily the Apocalypse because it's a throwaway model, but just a thing to keep in mind.
And to make sure that I understood what you're talking about. So the next option is to upgrade from Death Rippers to the
Night Wretch.
Night Wretch.
Mm-hmm.
And that'll add a few points.
And then you either get a Defiler or a Stalker.
Okay. Now let's.
The Defiler's an Arc node. And especially, I think if you're a newer player, that might be helpful because it will help you get Stenegro spells where you need to go.
Okay.
The Stalker is a perfectly fine choice, but it's more of a specific model hunter.
Right.
It does have a little bit of utility that if it hits something, that model can't be healed.
Okay, yeah. So just to go over that, I'm not going to pull the pictures up right now. I'm going to just take the fact that I messed up and didn't get them in there and just read this off. So the Stalker has Bounding Leap. So once per activation after making a full advance as is normal, after its normal movement, but before performing a combat action, this model can spend 1 focus point to be placed completely within 5 inches of its current location. So it can get places that you need it to be fairly well.
I want to point there's two things in that statement that are, one of which is not necessarily obvious. The other one might be. First off, he has to spend focus to do this.
Yes.
Which means if you want him to make attacks on the other side, it's Mat 7, which is pretty good, but you're still probably going to want to focus on it to boost. So he's going to want probably at least 1 focus in addition to when he gets normally. The other thing is it's making a full advance as a normal movement. You cannot do this when you run, and you cannot do this when you charge.
Correct. Okay.
Now, the nice thing is you can jump over things. Usually what will happen is this guy will jump over, get in the back arc of something, and punch it.
Yeah. And then the Stalker also has extended control range. So when you're measuring for the control range of the model, I would take it from its Warcaster. You double that range.
Mm-hmm. So Denegro, you'd be able to control it 28 inches out.
And that's crazy.
On a 4-foot table, yes.
Yeah. So.
And his last ability, or he's got 2 other things that are worth noting. A Grievous Wounds. A model hit by this weapon loses tough and cannot have damage removed from it for 1 round. So if you hit somebody, they can't heal.
Right.
Now, it is worth noting that huge bases like Colossals are immune to this effect, if I recall right. I believe they are. The other thing I want to point out is both of his weapons are magical, which means they can punch things that are ghosts.
Okay.
Which are a very common, I'm going to stick this in a zone and say you have to deal with it.
And those weapons are Eviscerators, by the way, and they are 1 range, 5
range 1 pow.
Yeah.
Power Strength 12 is the big one there.
Yeah.
So they don't hit super hard, but they are magical, which is really nice. That's not a big deal in the list you have here right now because Denegra has 2 spells that do damage. You have Dara Wraith with his shot. You've got the Scarlock Thrall that can shoot stuff out. That's not the biggest deal here.
But the Stalker is not an arc node.
Stalker is not an arc node. That's the downside.
That's the downside.
You are getting an offensive piece.
Which I understand why it wouldn't be an arc node, considering it can,
Yeah,
be
it can
so
do all
far
that
away.
stuff.
That would really add some power.
Mm-hmm.
So,
for a newer player, I'd opt for the Defiler, mostly because it's an extra arc node if you make a mistake.
Correct.
Because not only can your arc nodes be killed, and that stops them from arcing, obviously, if your opponent engages them in hand-to-hand, that also stops them from arcing.
Okay.
So having an extra arc node just kind of sitting around isn't a bad thing, especially if you're a newer player and maybe don't see all of the tricks of movement.
Okay. And the Defiler has a ranged attack as
Yeah,
well?
he's got a spray, so
Cannon?
so he can contribute a little bit on his off turns.
And he has a bash. So
Yeah, the big thing there is his gun.
okay.
If he's making melee attacks, mistakes were made or we're getting desperate.
Right. Okay. And he's got pretty good defense and armor. So
yeah, he's on par with the other ones.
Okay.
And then your last choice is Bane Warriors, a minimum unit, so 6 guys. This is more of it's kind of up to you. It's kind of in the same boat as the Slayer.
Mhm.
They're not hard to kill because
Right.
their defense 12, armor 15. That is affectionately referred to in the Warmachine community as a victim stats. They are hit by everything. They are killed by everything.
Right.
But having more guys trying to cross the table isn't a bad thing.
Right.
It's also worth noting that's going to take 6 shots to kill all of them for the most part, whereas that Slayer might be disabled in 1 or 2.
Right.
It's not going to die probably, but it might lose an arm on each shot. Okay. So that's why I put the Slayer as lower. I'd take the Bane if you want more offense. I take the Bane Warriors first.
Mm-hmm.
It's also worth noting they can benefit from Dara Wraith, so they have similar threat ranges to the Stalker.
Mm-hmm.
Or the Slayer. And then option 2 is if you want to get a little more experience with the spells, I'd grab the Defiler and upgrade to Night Wretches.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
And then the plan with this army, just to clarify, kind of visualize it on the table. Most of the time, your Warcaster sits right in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
Dara Wraith is kind of the center focus of your army. You need to make sure as many models are within 9 inches of him as possible.
Okay.
Now, if your opponent has a million blast weapons, don't do this. This is a terrible idea. Spread out, it'll be okay. But the goal is on the key turn where you're going to go in and start attacking things. Dara Wraith uses his ability to buff your speed. The Banes go in. The Riders go in. Denegra is going to feat this turn. She's going to parasite a key target. She's going to crippling grasp a key target. Parasites for the thing you want to kill. Crippling grasp you can use for a thing you want to kill, or you can put on a thing you don't want to retaliate next turn because it's also a speed debuff.
Okay.
So that might prevent your opponent from retaliating. And it is worth noting that with the arc nodes, there's a good chance you probably already have one or both of those in play.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're willing to blow through your entire stack of focus, you can actually double dip on all of those abilities. So you can upkeep them and then cast them again.
Okay.
And when you cast it again, the old one disappears. You can get Parasite on 2 targets in 1 turn. Combined with her feat and the fact that Banes have the Weapon Master trait, you're going to kill a lot of stuff dead.
Yeah.
I mean, dead. A Bane Warrior hitting a parasited target is effectively power 19 with an additional die damage. 18, I'm sorry.
Okay.
That's equal to the armor of most Warjacks.
Well, I think to start off with, I think we'll go ahead and upgrade those Death Rippers just to get a list that's done. And then that way I can know what I need to start putting together.
And then grab that Defiler.
Yeah. So we're gonna go up to Night Wretches and 1 Defiler.
I got one more guy to preach about, and then I'm done.
Okay.
Banelord Tartars. We didn't talk about this guy at all. Defense 12, armor 17. He has stealth, so he's hard to shoot. Cool. Okay. Two big abilities here. Number one, veteran leader Bane. While in this model's command range, 9 inches, other friendly Bane models get +1 to attack rolls. Your Banes, Thralls, and Warriors are going to be more accurate. Denegra did not have an accuracy buff for the most part. She has crippling grasp, but being able to hit more accurately is much better. And then lastly, his weapon has an ability called Death Toll. When it kills a living enemy model, you can remove that model from play and put a grunt back into your Bane unit. So you can keep bringing Banes in.
Okay.
So as they die, you have a little bit of you can bring them back, and he's also making them more accurate. So that's where between him and Dara, you can kind of see these key support piece arguments going on,
Right.
where they're doing very critical things.
There he is. I was trying to find him. Yeah. Yeah, and that's pretty crazy because he's got like 17 armor also.
Yeah, he's got 17 armor and 8 hit points.
Yeah, that's pretty
the trick with him is to not give him away. He's got good armor, he's got stealth, so people like to push him far forward.
Yeah.
He only has to be 9 inches away from your farthest forward Bane.
Right.
Because when you return a guy, you can just put it in his command range. It's fine.
Yeah.
So your farthest forward Bane, the back of that guy's base has to be within 9 inches of Tartarus. There's no reason to be further forward than that.
Not overextending is very important.
Yeah. And if you get the chance to go kill guys, he does have a rule that lets him make 2 melee attacks. Just go in, kill 2 guys, 2 Banes.
Cool.
I do want to note it is add to a Bane unit, so you actually can go above maximum squad size.
So if I were to add those other
Banes, that ability doesn't quite work until you start losing some.
Yeah.
Although you are going to lose some on the way in, so it's kind of a non-issue.
Right.
But this guarantees that you will at least have some guys to put into play.
Okay. Want to peek back? Yeah.
And
I don't know. Still don't know why we lost that Zoom thing.
There's a 75-point Denegra 1 Dark Host list.
There we go. Let's go ahead and go back to it. Okay. So to go over it again, we got 75 points. Dark Host with Denegra 1. The War Witch Denegra. And as you can see, we have Denegra, her Warjacks that are attached to her or in her battle group are Defiler, Leviathan, Nightmare, which is her bonded one, and 2 Night Wretches, and then we have an attachment of a Scarlock Thrall that come from our requisitions, our free stuff that we get. We have Bane Lord Tartarus. He's bigger on the inside. And then
Dara Wraith.
I can never figure out how to say his name. But and he's a cool figure because especially when you're running Bane Riders, because he looks like he belongs with them if he's mounted. That's another thing. He has 2 different models.
Yeah, he's called a Dragoon. If you kill him, he dismounts.
Yeah. So he goes dismounts. There's 2 different models with that, and then they have different cards and everything. So
you basically have to kill him twice.
Yeah. And then our Bane Riders, which are cool. I mean, what's not cool about mounted cavalry? And especially when they're dead people. And then our Bane Warriors, which, they are...
they're the meat of the army.
The meat, right. They have 10... And just for those who didn't see it when we added them, I mean, the max, there's 10 in the unit. 9 grunts and 1 leader. And those are basically what comes with the newer starter sets. So yeah, I think this looks a lot. I have a lot better understanding of why now some of these things go in there.
It's all about the synergy.
Yeah, so this looks like a lot cleaner list than I had, even though I had most of this. The Warjacks were throwing me off because I knew from reading that the Bane Lord was important for Dark Host. for the Banes, obviously, and Wraith was Dara Wraith was also very important to this type of army. Actually, Dara Wraith is in a couple different theme forces. He's just a good model all around.
He shows up in a lot of places.
Yeah, he's just a good model all around.
And the places he doesn't show up are the places that don't care.
Yeah. So, and I'm glad I found the War Witch de Negro. She was just sitting in the box of stuff that I got, and it wasn't listed on the stuff that we were supposed to trade for. So that was cool. It looks like a starter box piece, plastic starter box piece. So
yeah, she was in the old starter box for Cryx.
So, if you have any questions about that, let us know. But before we leave, we're at about an hour, almost an hour and a half. Nick, as an experienced player, what would be any next steps or additions you would make to this list going forward?
Okay, so first off, the first thing that I would want to do is kick the Leviathan out for a Wraith Engine.
Right.
Okay, Wraith Engine is just a good support piece. While you're there, you can also strip back down to the Death Rippers and the Defiler. That frees up 11 points to play with.
Okay.
Exactly what you do with them, there's some discussion there. I would definitely grab a Void Archon. And then you have 3 points left to fill in as you see fit. The other thing I would do, you can keep the Scarlock. I would swap him for 3 Machine Wraiths.
Okay.
For scenario play, because the Machine Wraiths have a trait called Incorporeal. They can only be damaged by magic attacks. So they just walk into a zone and they just say, "Hi, this is mine now.
Yeah.
You can't score this." And then we're going to look at this also. If you're going to go to a tournament, you're looking at a 2-list pairing, not a 1-list army.
Right.
And that there's a whole little sub meta game around what do you take as a pair.
Right. And then Conflict Chamber is just an amount of clicking on add list, and because it's set up for tournaments and it'll let you make 2 lists.
The big thing about Denegra, I would say, is you really, really, really don't want to get a hard shooting list. Right. If your opponent has a really, really hard shooting list, the Bane Warriors, your stats aren't good enough, plain and simple. With the Wraith Engine, it helps, but it's still not perfect.
Okay.
The stuff that can shoot well is going to be able to punch through that. So you'd want something that's very resilient to shooting. A common pair that I would do is Asphyxious the Hellbringer in Black Industries.
Okay.
For those of you who know Cryx, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You take a bunch of Slayers. He has an ability called Unyielding. They get +2 armor against melee attacks. And the Theme Force gives him Carapace. They get +4 armor against ranged attacks. And he's a Jack-focused caster, so he's going to get a lot of mileage out of his Jacks. I could also see very easily taking a... Pirate Queen Scar.
Yeah.
She would run a very similar list to this, but it's much more resilient on the way in.
Okay.
It's very much it focuses on 1 critical turn, and that's it.
Okay. And then you're talking about Scar in what theme?
So you could play her in Dark Host. I would play her in Dark Host. So you'd be running 2 Dark Host lists.
Okay.
Which isn't the end of the world, particularly since Scar is gonna. She's got 1 turn of +5 armor across the board on pretty much everything that matters. Okay. But her list is going to look different. She's not going to take the Bane Warriors. Right. She's not going to take Tartarus. She might take Dara Wraith. You might take a second unit of Bane Riders. You're not taking any Arc Nodes, and all of your Warjacks are Stalkers.
Yeah, I can see that.
And what you do is, and she has a spell that lets you roll an additional die to hit effectively. And she just runs around and says, I'm going to try for a caster kill. If I can't, I hit really hard. And if you want to shoot me, my Bane Riders are armor 22.
Nice.
So she's much more resilient to shooting.
Okay. So I do have a number of models already in my collection that are the. Let me pull this up here. Okay, so I'm working on this list. Let's go back to units. The Satixis, what did you say?
Yes.
So I have like Satixis.
So you got Raiders and Blood Witches.
Yeah.
Which are the two units. That's the two relevant units.
Right.
You've got the attachment for the Raiders, you've got the attachment for the Blood Witches, and you've got the captain. Fantastic start. What you need is there's a few little kind of sprinkle in pieces. You need Axiara, you need Severa Blacktide, and I'd recommend at least one unit of Statixis Gunslingers. Maybe not from necessarily from a competitive standpoint, but it's nice to have some guns on the list.
Okay.
The downside with that is it's very what we refer to as pillow fisted. It doesn't actually hit that hard.
Yeah.
So if you wanted to go that route, what I would do is I would 100% put Denegra in that theme force.
Yeah.
And then run somebody else with Dark Host. Scar 1 would be a really good example.
Okay.
And that actually would be a pairing that it wouldn't necessarily win a tournament, but it's just good stuff. You got a Scar 1 Dark Host list. You've got a Denegra 1 Satixis. It's kind of an old tried and true. You're just looking at your opponent and saying, can you survive all the debuffs? Have fun.
Right.
And particularly with the way that things are going right now, where you're seeing lower and lower model count armies, things like Parasite, things like Crippling Grass, things like Scar's Feet go further and further.
Yeah.
Being able to scalp, what we call scalp out, pick out one guy specifically and kill it, is becoming more and more powerful.
Cool.
But yeah, I would grab Axiara. I would grab Severa, definitely, if you want to go into that theme force. It's kind of required.
So what is the solo, is it Iacos?
Iacos? What about him?
Well, he has,
so he's what's called a journeyman warcaster. He actually has the focus manipulation role.
Yes.
So he gets focus, he can cast spells, he gets warjacks, and those warjacks can get focus. He is really good if you want to take a jack but don't want to put it on your caster. I've seen him in a number of lists. He actually has a lot of play in a number of situations. Depending on the theme force, you might actually put him in a Denegra list, just not Dark Host is available. Yeah, I mean he's not available in that one.
Yeah.
But you can look at, I mean, he's available in the Satixis theme. He's available. I think he's available in Black Industries as well. Don't quote me on that though.
And
but
the one. Go ahead. I don't want to.
I must say, what he does is he gets his jacks going pretty good speed, +2 speed, and that ability that the Stalker had to prevent your opponent from healing.
Yeah.
He just casts that as a spell, and all of his jacks get it.
Nice.
So you give him a jack. It is only melee weapons, so you can give him a Helldiver. You can give him a Stalker. Escort Stalker with him is actually really cool.
Well, because he does have an ability that gives him better protection if he has at least 2 jacks with him, right?
It's not at least 2. So if he has a jack within 3 inches.
Any jack within 3
inches. That being said, he only gets to armor 16, and he has native stealth. Again, one of those situations of why is he getting attacked?
Right. Okay. Yeah, it's a lot to play with. I'm just glad to have a list, something that I can build towards, because as we know, I mean, I got these all on a trade, so there's most of them are not even, or some of them are partially assembled, some of them are good, some of them are prime, some of them not. The Leviathan we include in this list is actually painted, so that gives me, as I know that I'm going to strip that model because I hate the paint job on it, you know. But I have a list now, and I think we can revisit this later with Warmachine. I have
get some game experience on it.
Some game experience, come back, redo it, but also as you know, I have a retribution army that I need to build as well. So eventually we can kind of go through that, or like I said, maybe I'll come across some more models and we can look at the other themes for this and make a second list. That's first, make a 2 list for a tournament, and maybe even once tournaments start going again, um, we can, maybe I can travel with you somewhere and try it out once I've got some game experience. That'd be
Sounds
an
good.
interesting thing to report on. Well, I don't want to take too much more time. We're at about an hour and a half. I think for this we're doing good. I will include. Is there a way to? I don't think I can link this list, right?
I think you can share it.
Yeah, it's a permanent link. Whoops. Yeah. So it made a second one there. I guess that's the link. So we'll go ahead and copy that, and I'll put that in the in the in the description of the video so that y'all can see it. Sorry that we had a few technical issues. We still don't have video on there for some unknown reason. But like I said, we'll figure that out later. But we can still hear each other and hope, and I can still see that the audio's going on there, so we were recording our sound. So anyway, take a look at it, pause the video, look at it. Once again, I'd like to remind you that we do have that a lot of people use this site for this. It is a free site to go to. There's also a link on the right hand side right over here. That's for tournament results. That links to Discount Games Inc. I believe for tournament results. There aren't a whole lot of, obviously, for this year, just from like January, maybe in February because of COVID. But that's cool too. You can sign in if you want to, access, you want to store things and so on and so forth. But the important one here is it takes a lot to put these things together. It's not just a matter of, throwing a couple things here and there. Keeping up with and making sure everything is updated is a task. So if you are able to help support this thing, go ahead and do that. I think it's good. And other than that, check us out on Facebook, Instagram, all at What Game Now. And we have Warcaster Neo Mechanica video coming up soon. I would hold up my rule book, but I can't
recorded a test game. We actually played another one today, just on in addition to that. We're gonna be doing box set reviews like we did for Heavy Gear.
Yeah.
So go through the faction starters.
And I also want to have a discussion about it at some point. So just kind of go over thoughts and stuff. There are some finishing thoughts, like with all of our other Play It Now videos about it. But the more that I play it, the more I have things to say about it. But
I have been very pleasantly surprised by it.
I have too. It's been awesome.
I Privateer Press's other miniature game, Warmachine, is very rules and interactive focused. It is a very high learning curve.
Yeah.
And I think Warcaster does have that to an extent, but it's not as painful.
Well, I think that I think the rules are basic enough. I say basic enough, but there's
after one game, you can see the things that's like, oh, there's a lot here.
A lot underneath it, yeah. So
good Lord, I almost had a stroke doing the activation math. Like, oh, I only have like 9 turns to actually do anything.
So you have limited resources. Those resources are able to be used.
And the turn limit is aggressively short.
Yes, well, especially the size that we play, and we'll talk about more of that. But it's a game that has 2 different sizes. It has a skirmish size, and then it has a full game size. We haven't tried the full game size, but the skirmish size is very intense. And we'll talk more about that. Like I said, a video should be up here in the next, hopefully by Monday, for everybody to take a look at and watch us play our first game. We did play another game today. Nick and I were able to go to our local game store. Sorry guys, you can't, but we can, and we're going to do it.
Ours has, for those of you who are curious, a ton of space.
Yes, it's huge.
So staying separate from everybody is actually very easy.
Social distancing is very easy there. Most people wear their mask when they're walking. People wear their mask when they're walking around, but when they're at a table with their opponents, the distancing is well enough. They'll play at the long end of a table, a 6x4 table instead of a short one. But it also has the freedom of if you are playing with a spouse or something like that, you have the option to not. But when you travel anywhere, you so all the social distancing stuff is there. So hopefully we'll get to spend some more time in our local game stores, and that they'll pick up some of the stuff that we play. Nick, I know that you have been trying. So when I owned the store, to now to get Warmachine / Privateer Press products more into the gaming space here. And at the end of this video, I would just like to say that I myself, after playing that and learning more about Warmachine and stuff like that, I want to work together to try to make that happen still. So I think, well, partly because I like the way that they handle things as far as balancing and errata and the living rulebook model, and they seem to at least give somewhat of a damn compared to. I wish you guys could see us talking, but we can't. Damn it. But sorry.
So is this not on video?
Us talking isn't, but the sound is. Unfortunately, the capture for Zoom has
crashed,
and without restarting it over.
But yeah, going on to your point there, I think one thing that Games Workshop has excelled at to the point of hurting the industry is it is so big and so prolific. That's all that a lot of people know.
Right.
I mean, there are very few players in our area, and I've been trying to push other miniature games who will even look at anything else. And it's not necessarily because Warhammer is so good. It's because they have so much money invested into it, they're afraid to try something else.
Right.
I mean, that's the biggest feedback that I've gotten. I've got a number of people who are talking to me who are fed up and quitting Warhammer, be it Age of Sigmar or 40K, for various reasons. And it's like, it's funny because I make a point to play as many miniature games as possible. And it's amazing how many issues GW has that other companies don't.
Right.
Like, it really blows my mind that I look at it and go, how are you guys... The only thing they're ahead of everybody in is model quality and material, and that's because they have money.
Yeah.
Other than that, like, their rules design is ancient by the standards of a lot of other games.
I agree.
You guys will see it on the Warcaster video. Just what a more modern take on a miniature game looks like. It plays much faster, not necessarily in time, but in what's going on. It's a very quick play. It's very low downtime. A lot of negative play experiences like, oh, you killed my entire army, is not there.
Right.
There's a lot more meat on the bones in terms of interactions and things going on. It's not just mash toy soldiers in the middle of the table. A lot of rules issues, like true line of sight sounds on paper like a fantastic rule. I've never seen it actually work. Every game that I've played that does not have true line of sight is much better.
Yeah.
I remember back in 5th edition when true line of sight was added in. 40K did not have true line of sight forever. I know 4th edition did not. I don't know about earlier. 4th edition did not have true line of sight 100% of the time. There was a beautiful Space Marine army that I saw where this guy had his assault marines and they're literally flying. They're like 4 or 5 inches above their bases. when True Line of Sight came out, they're rendered literally unplayable because now your guy's that tall,
Yeah.
and it's like you're punishing people for making cool models when you make the cool models.
Yep.
And then you go play like Warmachine, you play Infinity, you play Guild Ball, you play pretty much any other miniature game out there right now, and none of them use True Line of Sight.
Yeah. None of them. Absolutely none of them.
There's a couple I can think of that do, but they're not really big. They're kind of 40K clones for all intents and purposes.
Yeah.
The games that really strive to do their own thing don't use a True Line of Sight system. They do something else.
Right.
We were talking that 40K is kind of reverting back to its Games Workshop is kind of reverting back to its sins of pre-2016.
Yeah.
8th edition was phenomenal because it made GW rewrite everything. Well, 9th edition came out, now they don't have to. And how long are we going to be waiting on some new codexes? You're still going to play with an 8th edition army. Your friend's going to play with 9th edition. I saw a Facebook post online where somebody's like, my gaming group wants to keep playing 8th edition books until everybody has one. And I'm like, from experience, I can tell you, you'll get the last one about 6 months before the new edition hits. You will play 9th edition for 6 months at that point. And then 10th edition will come out.
Right.
And it's just like, everywhere else I've gone, this is just not an issue. Yeah, every game has its problems. Infinity suffers from the same mechanics creep that Games Workshop does, if not necessarily power creep, where their stuff isn't necessarily getting more powerful, but they're coming up with new mechanics and they're not retroactively applying them.
Right. I got our pretty faces back.
Fantastic, but it's just
time. Just in time.
Yeah.
Well,
I guess that's just me.
As much as I love to punch GW in the face every chance that I get,
I think we need to do a video of us just complaining about Games Workshop.
I just think we still need to do that state of the game one where we just talk about the state of miniatures gaming in general, and that'll give us enough chance to complain about a lot of things.
Games Workshop is like Apple. They're the face of the industry, for better or worse.
Yep, I agree. I was thinking about that today. Like, you can walk into just about any hobby shop that's, I don't even want to say of decent size, because I've seen very small hobby shops, decent at least, that have
GW stuff.
GW stuff.
I know.
Anything else, but they have GW stuff.
I know why. It's because GW sells a starter bundle.
Yep.
It's not cheap, but it's ready to go, and it includes. I know, but it includes things that they claim to be top sellers. Although I've always questioned that.
Well, it is. I do think.
A lot of other companies don't have that.
Yeah.
And that's an interesting thing. That's Games Workshop. You deal directly with them.
Yes.
Everybody else is through distribution.
Right. You can get some GW stuff through distribution, but mainly only new releases.
Which is fascinating because when companies start doing direct only sales, everybody gets grumpy. And it's like, this is all Games Workshop does.
That's it.
I know our local store. They don't go through distribution. They're 100% from Games Workshop.
Yeah.
Direct. Privateer Press has moved some of their product to direct only. It's the older stuff that doesn't move as well. And that was a huge controversy. Like, oh, Privateer Press is turning into Games Workshop. It's like, no. They're still selling through distribution. They pulled the stuff that wasn't a big seller. Games Workshop not only demands that your store buy from them, they still have a list of web store exclusives.
Yeah.
And they're usually high demand models.
Yeah.
If you play Eldar, the Wave Serpent, one of the best models in that book, is direct only from GW.
Yeah.
Now, some stores, if they're high end.
Well, basically, all your hero type models, your name characters, things like that. I know, especially in AOS, they're all web exclusives.
Yeah.
Now, when it comes down to it, as a store owner, you then you do have a web account, but you do have to then order those things separately from your normal order, right? So you can't just put it on your normal order, your weekly order. So they
And
come,
I don't think
your
it's
rep
I don't
calls you
think
up
it's
and says, "Hey, what do you need this week?" If there's anything that's web store exclusive, you can't tell him you need it. You can tell him you need it, but he's going to tell you go. So then you have to go to the store. So you have to go to your web portal and then order that on top of it. So you got 2 shipments. Now, the great thing about the direct order is that you're going to, you get like the 1 order a week, and depending on your size, you get the 1 order a week. That's free shipping, right? You don't pay any freight, no matter how big the order is, no matter how small. If I order a brush, it's that 1 order a week. It comes to me, and I don't pay anything. When you go to the web, though, you end up having to pay. You have to pay some shipping because you're ordering basic from the web store on a special account. That
and,
doesn't give you the same discount that you get from your direct.
yeah, which is impressive because GW doesn't run through distribution. Yet I know what their cost is to stores,
Mm-hmm.
and it's on par with a lot of other products going through distribution.
Of course.
Like I
Because you
think
would think
the cost to the store I think is 55%,
well,
if I recall right.
it depends.
It's
Okay.
55% on a lot of items. I know
Right.
that.
There are no. It depends on the item, but there's usually a straight percentage, and it also depends on your level. Like if you're just a stockist level, then there's like another level that goes up above that. You get a little bit more, but you would think that they're cutting out the distributor would allow them to, well, it probably could allow them to give a little bit more to the store as far as discount goes, because they're not having to go to that distribution channel and lose that extra. Your distributors aren't making a ton of money off these things as far as that. I mean, their markup is not.
They're by volume.
Yeah, they're by volume. They want to get as much stuff out as possible. But anyway, we can have another discussion about that in our state of the thing. We have added an extra like 15, 20 minutes on this video.
That's fine.
Talking about things that aren't related to the video.
Yeah, so close it off. Warcaster Neo Mechanica content is coming. There's a Let's Play It coming up, and there will also be box set reviews for all the individual starters. And we'll probably extend that to include the Wave 1 releases just in general.
And hopefully I can get Josh to get off his lazy behind and stop playing with all those toys that he keeps getting in the mail. And either continue our escalation series for Warmachine, or just go straight into playing some full-size games and recording them. So, but we will have Nick there for those in the beginning to be our guidance, because I'm sure that he doesn't mind that. And then Nick and I, Nick, I'll talk to you more later at another time about what we can possibly do to get some of these other games going. Do we have to like tie people up and make them play? Because I have duct tape, I have chairs, and I think once they play it,
It'll be like Russian roulette, but with toy soldiers.
Right. We're just gonna. By the way, the best descriptor of wargaming miniatures that I've ever heard, it makes me laugh every time, is war Barbies. I love that term.
I'll have to remember that one.
War Barbies. Anyway, thank you all. Check out our Facebook, Instagram. Actually, just go to the YouTube channel. On this YouTube channel, at the top on the header, all of our links are there: website, and Instagram, Facebook. Or you can go to our website at whatgamenow.com. Remember to like, comment, subscribe, and share to let other people know that we're here. Nick, I thank you again for sitting through another discussion with me and helping me to build my list, which I'll give one last look of. Our Dark Host list that we did, and we'll do some more army building stuff, not just for Warmachine. We have plans to do some army list building for Heavy Gear Blitz and maybe 9th edition, a few other things, just to kind of at least to give everybody an idea of what that looks like. overall, because one of the hardest things when you come into a new game, at least, or you're visiting another game, is getting that first list down and understanding why we make the decisions that we do. So I think our next one will probably be Heavy Gear Blitz, because Nick and I really like Heavy Gear Blitz. And the Gear Grinder, which is another one of those, we do it for free websites, is absolutely amazing. Speaking of on rebuilding, this is related. Before we go, did you see that they added Heavy Gear Blitz to Battlescribe?
I saw it. It is not the current rule set. It's 2.0.
Yeah.
The guy is aware of that, and it's mostly they're just getting started.
Yes. I like the spread. I like spreading the game. That is a great system and a great game. But anyway, once again, thank you so much. Y'all have a wonderful night. Nick and I will come back with some more live content here soon, and some. I said hopefully Monday we'll have some more battle report stuff, some more play it now stuff. As you can tell, we're play it now, we're build it now, whatever, because we never want you to forget to always